Instagram influencers or Facebook ads? Which one is better? What's happening, guys? Today we're going to be talking about Instagram influencers versus Facebook ads. I get this question literally every day. Which one's better? Which one should I start with? And today I want to break it down for you, give you the pros and cons of each, because both of them are good. Depends on the situation, depends on your budget, depends where you're at in the process and what you're willing to do. And let's hop into my computer and I'll break this down for you guys. All right, guys. So I have just a quick little slideshow here, and we're just going to cover Facebook ads, as the pros and cons of Facebook ads, and then Instagram influencers and when you should use each, right? So I'm going to tell you what I do mostly at the end of this, but let's just hop right into these two things and then we'll break it down. So first, I have Facebook ads. Now, you guys all probably know what Facebook ads, if you're on, you know what that is if you're on this channel. It's basically just using Facebook to target and advertise to people so they can buy from your e-commerce store or buy your products, right? So what are the pros of Facebook ads? Why do I like using it? Well, first of all, the advantage of Facebook ads is you have more control, right? You can pick the audiences that you're going to target pretty quickly, and you can look into audience insights, see who is in your audience, like their demographics, their age group, what interests what kind of things they're interested in, and you can target and advertise to these people on Facebook pretty quickly, right? So that goes into point number 2, less time spent. As soon as you figure out these interests and what's working, you just set up your ad sets and you enter those interests into your ad sets, right? So it's less time spent because once you do the initial research and you make like a spreadsheet of the interests that are for your niche, it's pretty quick to set up your ad sets from there, right? I can set up an ad set within like 5 minutes, right? So it's very quick and you control it, right? So the point number 3 is you also get a better look at the data, at what's working and what's not working. So you're able to track like which interests are working. You're able to see the breakdown of the age groups that are doing well, the gender. If you're targeting more than one gender in the age group, it'll break that down for you. If you're targeting more than one country, it'll show you that as well, right? So you can use Google Analytics for this, and if you're using Instagram influencers, but if you're not technical, it's very easy to get overwhelmed with that stuff, right? So Facebook gives you a better read on the data. I love the data, right? Because that tells you everything about what's working, what's not working. It's so crucial for what you do next, right? What's your next step? How you scale, all that kind of stuff, right? That data is crucial for you, right? So the cons. What are the cons of Facebook ads? Well, first of all, I would argue it's probably more expensive than Instagram influencers. It's definitely harder to get started if you don't have a budget, and it takes a bit more time to learn, right? So if you haven't taken a course on Facebook ads, you haven't watched videos, and you haven't learned the ins and outs of how the system works, you're gonna have to spend some time going through and learning that. Now, I think Facebook has a free training on how to use their platform. It's called Blueprint, but I don't think they teach you like the strategies and stuff on how to do that. So it does take a bit more time to learn, and if you guys aren't learning from the right people, and if you're not taking a course or watching the right people who have been in Facebook ads for a while now, then you're gonna have a hard time, right? So that leads us to point number 3. It can be overwhelming, especially for beginners and newbies, if you don't have training, right? So if you're just trying to jump in and read the manuals or read something you saw on Facebook, it's gonna be harder for you to get started, right? So if you guys want training on how to do that, make sure you check out the link in the description for the EA Academy. I go over all of our Facebook ads, and if you guys don't want to pay for the Academy, then just check out my free videos, okay? I have series on that. All right, let's jump into Instagram influencers here. So I'm talking specifically about shoutouts because that seems to be all the rage these days, and it's for a good reason, right? Like when you utilize someone else's fan base, you're gaining the trust of that influencer, right? So let's say, like, for example, I want to advertise a golf product, right? And I'm Nike, right? And I want Tiger Woods' audience, right? I would go to Tiger Woods. He's seen as an influencer, right? And then I automatically get the trust of Tiger's audience if he promotes my product, right? So that's what makes Instagram influencers very powerful, right? It can be a really, really good tool to use, a very good strategy to use, especially if you're beginning. So let's go into the pros and cons of each of these, right? Now, first of all, it's cheaper, right? It's definitely cheaper, especially in my experience. I paid less for influencers than I have for Facebook ads, and yeah, that's definitely a pro about Instagram influencers. Number two, if you find the right influencer, you can get higher conversion rates, and there's a potential for a long-term relationship, right? And this goes back to my example about Tiger Woods, right? Let's say you find the right influencer, and Tiger Woods, he's a very popular golfer, right? So he has a lot of respect in the niche, in the field. So that would lead to higher conversion rates because people trust what he says, right? Now, if you find the right influencer, the same thing happens, right? They trust the influencer a lot, they're passionate about the niche, and they believe what they say. And instead of a stranger telling them to buy a product, now it's like their friend, right? The influencer. So that could lead to higher conversion rates and a long-term potential for you, business relationship, if it works out, right? So that's another pro there. Number three is it's easier to learn and get started with, right? So all you really have to do for Instagram influencers is just manually reach out to these different influencers in your niche, ask them to promote your product, negotiate some pricing, and there you go. You can have your Instagram influencer shout out your ad on their story, their link in the bio within the next day or so, right? Or maybe in a few hours even. So it's definitely easier to learn and get started with. You don't really need any prior experience. All you do is reach out to these people, you test the waters with influencers, and hopefully you find a good one in your niche, right? Now the cons. The first thing is manual reach out, which means more time intensive, right? Now I don't believe things in life are free or discounted and that kind of stuff. You either pay with your time or your money, right? So if you're gonna spend less money, most of the time you're making up for that in more time spent, right? Like, so if you're spending less money on something, you have to usually spend more time doing it on your own, manually, right? Same thing applies for Instagram influencers here, right? You have to reach out to hundreds of influencers, and you also have to vet them, put them in a sheet, make sure you're tracking which ones are working, which ones aren't. And to me, I don't like it as much as Facebook ads because I can just set up a Facebook ad in like 5 minutes, right? I can find an audience, test it, because it's all about testing, right? I can test an audience within minutes, right? I can't really do that with Instagram unless I make a huge list the day before, right? Con number two is there are spam and fake pages out there, especially now with how popular Instagram is. It's pretty easy for people to build an Instagram page that's fake, that uses bots. So you really have to figure out which ones are fake and which ones aren't, and making sure that you're not advertising on these fake pages, right? Because then you're gonna just be wasting money anyway, right? So you're gonna have to look for that. You have to look at the engagement levels. There's all kinds of different nuances about that. I'll probably have to make another video about that later. Excuse me. But that is con number two. Watch out for the spam and fake pages because there are a lot out there. Number three is it's harder to read the data and to gauge the success and failure and like the granular details about what made that campaign a success or failure, right? You might get sales in and you might say, okay, I'm profitable, but then you have to look at it and say, okay, how do I see exactly what the age breakdown is, the gender breakdown, the location, all that kind of stuff that's important to build your campaigns around, right? You can't build your business in the long term based off of, oh, am I just profitable today? Am I not profitable, right? You need to know where to move your strategy from one step to the next, right? So maybe you ran a campaign on Facebook and then it didn't work as well, but you broke down the data and you could see the genders that are working well, the interests that are working well, the geographic locations that are working well. And then you can set up campaigns specifically for the things that worked well, right? With Instagram influencers, it's a little harder to do that because you're playing on their playground, right? They control the traffic, right? It's their audience. They're putting the ad on their page and you get the sales, but it's harder to read the data, right? Because you don't own the data like how you would on Facebook, right? So those are the pros and cons. Now, how do I use this? What's my strategy? To be honest, I use Facebook ads way more than influencers because, again, that control, and also I get that read on the data, right? I have used influencers in the past. I have been profitable from them, but for me, the time it took for me to reach out and find people and the amount of failures versus successes, it wasn't worth the time spent for me, right? So it's up to you what you want to do. If you are willing to put in more time to reach out to more influencers and make a log manually of who's working, who's not working, and figure that out, it's probably good for you, especially if you have a lower budget, right? For me, I have a higher budget that I can spend, so I'd rather spend the money getting my time back and just being able to read the data more easy, right? So that is my breakdown. My recommendation is everyone should be using both. Everyone should have both in their toolkit, in their strategy, and just know what is best for you at what time in the process, right? It also depends on your niche and your products and all that kind of stuff, right? Because if it's not a visually appealing product, it typically won't work on Instagram. So make sure it's something in that realm, that there's a lot of influencers in your niche on Instagram, right? So I hope that was helpful for you guys. I hope this breakdown was good, because I get this question literally every day. I want to clear it up, how I use it. And I'll have another video in the future about how I use influencers. It's pretty cut and dry, pretty straightforward, because it's not complicated. But again, hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next time.